Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today's topic of discussion is cartridges, different types, and what they're particularly good for. We'll start things off with the 22 here. And common variants defined as 22, 22 LR, and 22 Magnum. LR meaning long rifle. Excuse me a moment, the cat's found a zip tie. Oh yeah, before I forget to, thanks to our one voter for the poll that decided on us doing cartridges for our second video here. There'll be another poll out today to decide our video topic for next week. But back on topic, 22s are more commonly carried around for plinking, or bought for what they call plinking training, because the 22 round itself, you can get a couple different variations that are just primer based, where the bullet doesn't have any black powder in the middle of the casing. It only has the primer around the rim. This is all 22s are also known as a rim fire cartridge, because the firing pin just strikes the rim here, and that's what set it off. But they are also known to have a whole lot of what they call squib rounds, because of that, rounds that fail to fire. But 22s are good for training, plinking, very little recoil off the round itself, and if you do carry it for self-defense, they are some of the most concealable firearms there are. Like, I'm sure anybody watching this video has heard of the credit card 22 pistols that fold out. You just basically grab a card and fold the bottom half down, and it exposes the trigger. Let's see if I can... Basically sits more or less like this in your pocket, and you can fold it down to where you have something that roughly is the shape of a gun, and it exposes the trigger about here. And it is a breech loaded firearm, which means the barrel pops up in the back and you load in your 1 or 2 rounds and you're able to defend yourself. The problem with those is they're very difficult to aim with. More or less have to be right up on the person. Like with this Derringer, I am terrible shooting this Derringer because it is such a small barrel, such a small firearm, that it is almost impossible to line up that sight picture with your target. I've shot this a few times. Not only does this is chambered in 45 Colt, not only does the 45 Colt just sting the hand with it being such a little package, all that energy just goes straight into your palm. It's quite uncomfortable to shoot, but accuracy more or less goes out the window because the actual barrel is only about yay long. So the end of the 45 Colt ends here, it goes through here, and the rifling is only about right there, because it also shoots a 410 shotgun. As like a lot of people like to say, something's better than nothing. So if you got a credit card 22 to carry, that's you. If you're comfortable with that, you do you. Next up, we got an oldie but a goodie, very common to find in older revolvers, is 38 Special. Again, they do snub nose variants of the revolver. You get 6 shots this time for most of their concealed ones with the snub nose, but again, accuracy is a problem with that smaller barrel. You get less spin on the bullet and harder to aim. But is a tried and true self-defense caliber. Is used by many police officers back in the day, and some people still use it today, especially if you can't handle the next cartridge that's coming up. By far the most popular cartridge there is in the world, the 9mm, is reliable in many ways. It creates about the same wound channel as a 45, just plain old 45, but smaller cartridge means you can stack more into each magazine, and it's when slide actions start getting more available, we'll say. So you get better capacity. There's not much in the way of stopping power, but about as much as the 38 Special, if not a bit more, with a bit more power to it. And overall, just simple, reliable. It more or less is the standard for your everyday carry pistols. Next up, affectionately referred to as the Lord's caliber, the 45, fired out of 1911s and revolvers. They do make slide actions that shoot, or yeah, I already said that. Another blooper for y'all, since I don't know how to edit yet. But the 45, being a larger bullet than the 9mm, has a good bit of stopping power. People know when they get hit by this. It's main reason why it's still carried today. A lot of people will sit there and say, "Oh, it's won 2 world wars," but that there's nothing really more to say about it. Yeah, it was the standard back then, but the 9mm being that much more common, and you can pack more than twice the rounds you could pack in any firearm that's doing 45 with 9mm. But again, its main selling points is larger bullet, more stopping power, and it's what I prefer to carry. Now we're getting into the more powerful rounds here that are, I would say, typically used for more outdoorsy wilderness scenarios. The 357 Magnum, the bottom of the barrel for getting into penetrating big game animals. I say if you're out in bear country and you want something to defend yourself from bear, mountain lion, some large predator that's going to potentially see you as a prey item, you would want to start with 357 Magnum or 10mm. I don't have any 10mm on hand. Or 40 Smith & Wesson. That's another round that's comparable. 40 Smith & Wesson is another, and 10mm. Both come in slide actions. I don't think I've seen too many revolvers carry for either of those. More so the 40 Smith & Wesson, but those are generally self-defense rounds for against wildlife. I'm going to do these two together just because everything I have shoots both of these. The 45 Colt and 410 shotgun. Both can be fired out of the Taurus Judge and Bond Arms Rough and Rowdy Derringers. Although the Derringer only goes up to 2.5 inch for the 410, and my particular Judge has a 3-inch cylinder, allowing it to go up to 3-inch for the 410 shotgun shells. But I bought the Judge specifically to be able to fend off a bear, because I went into bear country for a small trip a while back, short trip, and I did my research, and 45 Colt wasn't necessarily in the list for calibers that'll take down a bear, but my goal wasn't to outright kill it. Make sure it knows I'm not a prey item and I will be fighting back. But I like the 45 Colt 410, just how versatile it is. I could put in birdshot or a slug, whatever the situation calls for, I can slap a round in there in one of those two firearms I previously mentioned and be good to go. This is a anti-personnel round, specially designed to just basically stop somebody if I was to use the Judge or the Derringer. My research found that it's not the kind of the pass through like if I was to use a buckshot. Buckshot would over penetrate, and that is something that I worry about. As I think I said in a short today, my main concern is over penetration. So I choose whichever round for whatever instance that I see fit, that I'm not going to over penetrate and potentially pass through somebody else. Now we get into the more wacky fun time rounds that they do make pistols and handguns for. The 4570. This caliber can go into I think the Taurus Raging Hunter, primarily a rifle round, but they do make larger revolvers, and only revolvers that can handle these types of rounds, like the 4570 or Smith & Wesson 500. Those are the upper echelons of big handguns that don't really have a purpose other than to just be fun to shoot, or maybe some big game pistol hunting. Other calibers that I don't have an example on hand would be like the 50 Action Express, or the, what was it? It was just on the tip of my tongue. I said it earlier. The 40 Smith & Wesson. I don't have examples of those, but the 45 or the 50 AE Action Express is relegated specifically to Desert Eagles, the large slide action pistols that are just really fun to have, but no real practical use for them. Unlike the 40 Smith & Wesson that I just don't have, or the 44 Magnum. Don't have one of those either. Don't have an example of them. But that's about all I can say. These two are the most popular carry, 9mm by far. I wouldn't necessarily recommend, but if or recommend a 22, but if that's what you want to go with, more power to you. Just make sure you're trained and you're proficient with it. Just like with everything else, maintain your discipline and situational awareness to make sure that you're not going to shoot somebody that doesn't need to be shot in this situation. You only want to get the aggressor. Could somebody stop making biscuits on my chair? I have the culprit. But either way, no, you don't need your butt. But whatever y'all choose to carry, y'all stay safe out there.